The first book I'm going to read to you tonight is The Magic School Bus, Lost in the Solar System. It was trip day again in Miss Frizzle's class. Everyone was excited. We were going to the planetarium to see a sky show about the solar system. Arnold's cousin Janet was visiting our class for the day. I know all of you will be nice to our guest, said the Frizz. What is the solar system? The solar system is the sun and all the bodies that orbit around it. The 9 planets, their moons, the asteroids, which are chunks of rock, and comets, which are balls of ice and dust. We tried to be nice to Janet. We really did. As we got on the school bus, we told her that Miss Frizzle is the weirdest teacher in school. But Janet wasn't interested. She wanted to tell us about herself. As usual, it took a while to get the old bus started. But finally, we were on our way. As we were driving, Miss Frizzle told us all about how the Earth spins like a top as it moves in its orbit. It was just a short drive to the planetarium, but Miss Frizzle talked fast. On this page, the question says, what makes night and day? The spinning of the Earth makes night and day. When one side of the Earth faces the sun, it is daytime on that side. When that side turns away from the sun, it is night. When we got to the planetarium, it was closed for repairs. Class, this means we'll have to return to school, said the Frizz. We were so disappointed. On the way back, as we were waiting at a red light, something amazing happened. The bus started tilting back, and we heard the roar of rockets. Oh dear, said Miss Frizzle. We seem to be blasting off. This page says, why are spaceships launched with rockets? Spaceships cannot just fly into outer space. They need rockets to break free from the powerful grip of Earth's gravity. And what is gravity? Gravity is the force that pulls objects toward the center of the Earth. Other planets have gravity too. Larger planets usually have more gravity, and smaller planets usually have less. When the roar of the rocket stopped, we looked around. Everything had changed. The bus had turned into a spaceship. We were all dressed in spacesuits, and we were lighter than feathers. We floated above our seats. Far behind in the black sky, we saw the planet Earth getting smaller and smaller. We were traveling in space. We had become astronauts. The Frizz said our first stop would be the moon. We got off the bus and looked around. There was no air, no water, no sign of life. All we saw were dust and rock, and lots of craters. Miss Frizzle said the craters were formed billions of years ago when the moon was hit by meteorites. Meteorites are falling chunks of rock and metal. It was fun on the moon. We wanted to play, but Miss Frizzle said it was time to go, so we got back on the bus. We'll start with the sun, the center of the solar system, said the Frizz, and we blasted off. This question on this page says, what makes the moon shine? The moon does not make any light of its own. The moonlight we see from Earth is really light from the sun. It hits the moon and bounces off, the way light is reflected from a mirror. We zoomed toward the sun, the biggest, brightest, and hottest object in the solar system. Jets of super hot gases shot out at us from the surface. Thank goodness Miss Frizzle didn't get too close. She steered around to the other side and pulled away. We'll be seeing all the planets in order, class, explained Frizzy. Mercury is the first planet, the closest to the sun. Did you know that the sun is a star? Our sun is an average star like the ones we see in the night sky. Mercury was a dead, sun-baked planet. This planet is a lot like our moon. There's no water and hardly any air, said the Frizz. Notice the craters on its surface as we passed by. Before long, we felt ourselves being pulled in by the gravity of Venus, the second planet from the sun. Venus was completely covered by a thick layer of yellowish clouds. We will now explore the surface of Venus, said Miss Frizzle. Below the clouds, Venus was as dry as a desert. The ground was covered with rocks, and it was hot. It was about 400 degrees centigrade. That's much hotter than an oven baking cookies. The air was so heavy we could feel it pressing down on us. Miss Frizzle said there might be volcanoes around too. We said, let's get out of here. Our next stop is Mars, the red planet. Fourth from the sun, announced the Frizz. On our way, we'll be passing through the orbit of Earth, the third planet. The bus lifted off with a roar. It never rains on Venus. Venus's clouds never make rain because it is too hot for rain to form. Any liquid on Venus dries up instantly. As we came close to Mars, we passed its 2 moons. Compared to our moon, they were tiny, and they weren't even round. Looking down, we saw a huge canyon. Miss Frizzle said it was as long as the United States. There was a volcano 3 times taller than the tallest volcano on Earth, and all around there were channels that looked like dried up riverbeds. See the 2 moons? We landed and started walking around. Suddenly, a huge dust storm blew up. Miss Frizzle said dust storms on Mars can last for months. They may cover the whole planet. We scrambled back on the bus and headed out. Mars is the last of what we call the inner planets, Miss Frizzle shouted above the roar of the rockets. We will now be going through the asteroid belt to the outer planets. Question on this page says, what makes Mars red? Mars looks red because there's a lot of rusty iron in its soil. The sky looks pinkish because of the red dust in the air. Thousands of asteroids were spinning all around us. All at once we heard the tinkling of broken glass. One of our taillights had been hit by an asteroid. Miss Frizzle put the bus on autopilot and went out to take a look. She kept on talking about asteroids over the bus radio. Suddenly, there was a snap. Miss Frizzle's tether line had broken. Without warning, the rockets fired up and the bus zoomed away. The autopilot was malfunctioning. On the radio, Miss Frizzle's voice grew fainter and fainter. Then she was gone. We were on our own. We were lost in the solar system. It says the asteroid belt. The area between the inner and outer planets is called the asteroid belt. It is filled with thousands and thousands of asteroids. And what are asteroids? Asteroids are chunks of rock and metal in orbit around the sun. Scientists think that they are the building blocks of a planet that never formed. Most of us were too scared to move, but Janet started searching the bus. In the glove compartment, she found Miss Frizzle's lesson book. As she began reading from it, a huge planet came into view. Class, this is Jupiter. Janet read, it's the first of the outer planets and the largest planet in the solar system. We thought the school bus was going to land, but there was no solid ground to land on. Jupiter is a gas giant, a planet made almost entirely of gas. As we left Jupiter, we wondered and worried, would we ever get home? The question here says, what is Jupiter's great red spot? This thing. The red spot is probably a huge storm of swirling gas that has lasted for hundreds and hundreds of years. The next sight made us forget our troubles. It was Saturn, a gas planet like Jupiter. It had swirling clouds and lots of moons. But the most incredible thing about Saturn was its rings. It was the most beautiful planet in the solar system. What are Saturn's rings? Saturn's rings are made of ice, rock, and dust, all in orbit around the planet. Next was Uranus, a blue-green gas planet with faint gray rings and moons. Some scientists think they might be made of chunks of graphite, the material used in pencils on Earth. The bus was going faster and faster, and we couldn't control the autopilot. We swept past stormy Neptune, another blue-green planet, 8th from the sun. All we could think about was finding Miss Frizzle. We were going so fast, we almost missed seeing the 9th planet, tiny Pluto, and its moon. We were so far away from the sun that it didn't look big anymore. It just looked like a very bright star. We were leaving the solar system. Janet flipped rapidly through Miss Frizzle's book. Suddenly, she found something new, the instructions for the autopilot. We punched in asteroid belt on the control panel. Slowly, the bus turned around. It was working. We were going back. Says, is Pluto a real planet? Some scientists think Pluto was once a moon of Neptune. It may have escaped from the orbit around Neptune. Then it became a real planet in orbit around the sun. Pluto was the last planet discovered in the known solar system. And this book is old, so that may not be correct anymore. When we reached the asteroid belt, there was Miss Frizzle. With Frizzy back at the wheel, the bus headed straight for Earth. We re-entered the atmosphere, landed with a thump, and looked around. We were in the school parking lot again. The rockets were gone. The spacesuits were gone. The bus was a wreck. Everything was back to normal. In the classroom, we made a terrific chart of the planets and a mobile of the solar system. At last, it was time to go home. It had been a typical day in Miss Frizzle's class. Now we had only one problem. Would anyone ever believe us when we told them about our trip? Looks like she's getting ready for another trip, another adventure. I wonder what it'll be.